Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's just after 7 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. But after a variety of community meetings where we gathered input, as well as meetings with staff, students, and other community stakeholders, we are now to the point where we are beginning work. So we're just a few weeks away from actually moving some dirt at this site. So I'm excited tonight to have Tony and Mike, Tony Shore and Mike Dingledine, to present to you a little bit about each project and then specifically dig into some of the staging as to what will happen here as we face this project. Oh, very good. I'm Randy Banks, Assistant Superintendent. I'm filling in for Dr. Trent Bowers, who will be here shortly. He was stuck in traffic, and he will be here in just a few moments. So yeah, some of the rest of you were stuck in that same. So I'll turn it over to Tony Shore at this time.
Thanks, Randy. Again, I want to thank everybody for taking their time on a beautiful night to come out. And it's interesting, when it was 5 degrees out, we had twice the number of people here. So I think it's a nice night, we have fewer people. But thank you again, we really do appreciate when the community comes out. I've said this before, Worthington City Schools, the administration has been adamant about getting involvement from the community, getting involvement from staff, teachers. It's really been a great process. It's been quite a few months we've been doing this. And so we're excited tonight to show you updates of all 4 schools. We're going to do this again October 15th at Perry Phoenix, but we wanted to do it here tonight. And also the reason why we're doing it here is we want to show you the updates, but we also want to talk to you, like Randy said, about the different phases. And it is going to start, we think, towards the middle of October. They're going to start turning dirt, which is exciting. I do want to introduce a couple other people. The architect for Worthingway is Brian Pulowski with our office. He's here tonight. When you see the rendering, he's the one that's done this 3D video that he's proud of. It's beautiful. But he's also worked a lot on the design. Mike as well has done that. We have Paul Miller over here. He is our architect that's worked on Perry Phoenix. And Nathan Gamala is working on both Kilbourne and McCourt for us. And these guys have done a tremendous amount of work working with our numerous consultants and our team. So I wanted to introduce them. If you have sticky questions, I'll call on them. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike and let Mike start the process.
Okay, we've talked about this slide before. The pink line keeps moving, and that's how things happen. And so as you see, we are just about to exit the documentation phase for Worthingway and get into starting to procure bid packages. Things that early are coming up would be earth moving, some fencing, some site organization, some structural steel and foundation work. That's all coming, and it's all part of where we are. And yet we haven't even gotten to the construction document phase yet for Kilbourne and McCourt. So we've stretched these 4 schools out because of their size, their scale. Everything will be done in the summer of 2021, but we're going to get them out of the gates separately. I think that's good for where the construction market is now. It's very busy. And it's very hard to get interested bidders, so as we put these out a little bit separately, I think that's a good thing. I'm going to go backwards tonight with where we have the least amount of progress. That would be McCourt, and then end with Worthingway, since we're here tonight and probably where the most questions and the most detail can be shared. So we'll kind of go fast a little bit at the beginning, and we'll slow down and get into some more details as we get into Perry Phoenix and Worthingway. So McCourt. Northernmost middle school, sits north of Kilbourne High School and south of which elementary? Somebody? Thank you. I knew I'd get it fast. So we have a pretty good site. We have pretty good space. Although when you get into the site plan, you start seeing where underground utilities are. You start seeing what happens to the grades and to drainage as you get into the woods. And so we really wanted to use, for the most part, where we had open site. Obviously, we have a lot of investment in our entry drive and our drop-off sidewalk, so our opportunities for additions were always in this kind of zone over here. We thought we might push into the woods, not being a big deal, but we found it was a pretty big deal. And we're staying away from the trees, and we're staying in the open space, and we're trying to solve the geometry of how to put all this additional space onto a school. And so as we got into it, we ended up with a very sawtooth pattern for important reasons, which I'll get into. And we created what is probably the most unique part of this school, and that is a large contained outdoor land learning courtyard that's going to be contained by this new addition. As you can see how it sits on the existing school. We are also looking at site improvements, not necessarily part of the original scope, but something we might be taking alternates on to look at ways to improve site circulation and those kind of things. And so here we're showing some angled bus parking, so instead of lining the buses up one-on-one and starting them here and ending them up here by Granby, we have the ability to maybe stack them with a little bit of additional site work and make it a more direct access to the school, and then possibly give parents a little bit of access to the curb and pick up, which they don't have today. So here's how the building lays out programmatically. You see a lot of new science labs, you see a lot of new classrooms. We created this new courtyard, and we displaced music because of our desire and necessity to expand our student dining, and it's part of the beginning of that new addition. So there's about a 20,000 square foot addition here, about 12 new classrooms. We're going to take old science labs and grab them back for different kinds of special needs classrooms. We're going to create new special secure entry, and this is a much better slide that I needed to get to. So the blue is new construction. You can see that it's all one direction. It's all to the back of the building. We will keep out of any interruptions and any kind of construction traffic that's going to be in front of the school. That's great. We can't do that at every building, but here we were able to do that. We're going to capture all the music space next to the cafeteria and create a much larger dining room because we need it for the number of students we'll be housing. Then we're going to reprogram some music spaces and add a new large group music space here that replaces what we've lost. Here's our new office area that is secure entry. People come into the first door of the vestibule, they come straight into the office. They don't get past the second door of the vestibule during school hours. And then we're creating some small group learning collaboration spaces, which this school in particular lacks, and something we're trying to accomplish at most all of the middle school renovations and additions. And then the old science labs at the end of the building, we're going to capture for some new special needs space, which is also lacking. The larger spaces and the reconverted science labs are going to help us do that. So what's left after we do the basics? And this school wasn't very hard of a challenge in terms of the program. It was a fairly hard challenge in terms of where do we put the program? How do we orient this? How do we connect the pathways in the school back to each other? The idea that we would grow on the end of the wing and just make a much longer path to travel from the center core of the building out to the end was non-negotiable. So the idea of a loop actually came from the superintendent saying, how can we get the traffic patterns to connect to the end of the building, but also connect back to the core of the building? And this is what happened. And I was a little nervous about the idea of a courtyard. It's something that has to be maintained, something that has to be designed. But the teachers and the students in the school got very excited about the opportunities for outdoor learning and just outdoor space. And it's contained, it will be safe, it will not be subject to vandalism because it's completely surrounded by a secure school. And today with camera technology, we can even see something that might arbitrarily happen out there. So here's how the new massing of the building will look. And again, from the outside, not very exciting, although the sawtooth patterns that you got used to seeing are still there. This is where it gets kind of exciting, where the old and the new kind of create this zigzag courtyard with the ability to create teaching stations or teaching areas out here, and then something else next and something else next. So it's not just one big open space. It's small spaces that sort of connect in a tissue pattern and then also connect to these classrooms on either side of the courtyard. So as you get down at the eye level, again, it's pretty nice. It's not huge, high two-story walls. It's a one-story building. So we have the ability to get a lot of sky view, as you see in this picture. And we have the ability kind of to develop this into anything that students and staff can figure out in terms of using it for outdoor education. So it's not free space, but it's very cheap space in that it's not being maintained by mechanical systems or roofs and walls. So we're pretty happy about that. This is just a quick video. We have probably one for each building. This one is focusing on the outside. I guess the lack of impact on this side, and then the extent of impact that happens on the back side of the school. You can see we stayed nicely out of the woods line. We've used what we had. We have minimal utility disruption. We're feeling really good about how this attaches to the back of the core. It does very little to the existing building to cause us to have to change it or upgrade it. So I like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 outdoor spaces that could constitute a class, a small group of kids, a one-on-one. All those kinds of things can happen in the same kind of courtyard. So I'm going to move on to Kilbourne, but if you have questions absolutely. I guess if you want to ask them now, I'm going to try to keep this going until the end. Go ahead. Yeah, I think so. It's certainly up to the the administration of the school how they allow access. I think it'd be a great place to go for lunch. If it's a nice day outside, it'd be a great place to go for a study hall, even if it's outside. Architecturally, we want to make it flexible. We certainly want to dictate to the school how they would decide to operate it, but it's a good question, and it's something that's important, yes.
I just want to confirm my understanding from a previous meeting, because a friend came away from a different meeting with a different understanding. It's true that all of the students 6, 7, and 8 are all going to be mixed together, and there isn't a 6th grader wing.
Right.
Correct?
We've stayed away from kind of grade level banding in the building because science is kind of a department. So 6, 7, and 8, to the degree they all take science, will go to nearly the same place for that. I'm not stopping a principal from saying we want to focus on putting 6th graders here, 7th graders here, 8th graders here, but we aren't requiring that. We aren't necessitating that with our design. So I would say my personal opinion as an architect is make the building flexible so there isn't some requirement to be one way or the other. But if a principal and a curriculum director told me that age banding was the way we were going to do it, and it's going to work for us, and this is how we're going to do it, I think they could probably figure that out. But we're hoping that 6th graders learn from 8th graders, and that there's a good environment of diversity in the school to make that happen. And yet still, a principal can figure out how to deliver curriculum however they want. And that's where I find success. So we don't knuckle down and create something that limits the way you might teach and learn in a building. Good stuff. Oops. So Kilbourne, the smallest project scale-wise. We don't have much site to work with, as you can see. This is really, really contained. It is the most beautiful building. It has over the years been grown and even filled in the courtyard with a great media center. The sort of hidden asset for this school is Hartford Park, which the school contains and owns. And the challenge for the school, the greatest challenge, is ingress and egress, both for cars and pedestrians in and out of the building. How do you drop kids off? Everyone loves the fact that this is the front door of the building, but it's the least likely place to be used from the standpoint of traffic in and out egress. So when I go to the school, if I'm lucky enough to find a parking space that's not up here, I end up walking around the building and getting buzzed in. We're hoping to change that so that access for cars, buses, parents, drop-off, after-school events starts to make some sense with an alternative solution. So it was driven by our hand. We knew we wanted to make some additional improvements to Hartford Park because it's the only green space that makes sense for kids to use. There's a little bit of parking here, and we need more. We need some parking help. So this end of the building is where the parking is. There's some nice drop-off work here that's already been built into Hartford in a pull-off lane. And truly, the only open land that's not have building or parking or the front yard sitting on it is this corner of the building. So we kind of felt like this small addition and improvements to Hartford Park was what the hand we were dealt. And we feel like it's okay. We're pretty happy with it because we have some opportunities for Hartford Park, and we have really the ability to create a new front secure door for this building without making the front any less important or any less grand the way it is. So we had some programmatic needs. We needed some classroom space in this building. We were hoping for 4 or 5 classrooms. We've got all 5 plus a small group room. We doubled the size of the student dining, and we've created a new location for the offices, which used to fit inside these 2 little rooms here. We're going to recapture those as classrooms. That's how they were originally intended to be, is my guess. And we're going to create a new front door and a new operating secure entrance. And again, secure entries at all schools was a must at this end. So all of our new construction is sitting on that very small piece of ground. The old student dining is about half this width here. And then we're just capturing some internal space relative to that. So this is a pretty simple project. Something that this can happen over a summer. This is our new construction. We have to be careful with how we enclose it, how we make it safe, and how we operate school. Currently, there's a lot of traffic that comes from this back door, and there's some traffic that comes in this side door. We're going to have to figure out some options to make that work. But this is a very simple addition, a much bigger cafeteria and new offices. And the best part about it is, again, you come into a vestibule, you come straight into the office. There's no passing through into the school without coming and doing the thing with the visitor's pass and the badge. And so much more office programming. We're following the school design manual, so we're making sure we have the right size rooms, the right number of rooms. We have restrooms, clinics, reception staff, administrators. And again, they all tuck along the front of this building. They can see out what's going on in terms of the sort of the new front door of the building. And we have a much larger student dining, which based on just feedback in this district, we're trying to turn all the dining spaces into something that's very flexible, very multi-use, feels a lot more like a student commons than a cafeteria. So even this room here, it's going to get 4 times bigger, and it's going to be a lot more than just a dining space. We're trying to do the same thing even at Kilbourne. So the front offices, nice location for the front door, but very small and very tight. Those are going to become classrooms again. We need those. We're happy about that. And then in the upper level of the building are 3 more classrooms, a teacher prep room, and some additional support space. Small group restrooms, itinerant offices, those kind of things. So we're just taking the existing hallway out over the top of the new addition and down a corner stair. So very little work on this level as well. As you can see, a little conversion here and the new addition on top of the addition below. So it's a 2-story stacked addition. It couldn't be tighter, it couldn't be more secure in terms of how we're trying to tuck it into this building. It's going to work with the traffic flow, but it also is going to stay out of the way of the school operating while that happens. So here's the upper plan a little closer. The addition, we started thinking about it being 1-story, but as we needed the classrooms, we started looking at the building with the 2-story gym and the 2-story front, and we decided this is kind of the massing we think we want to reach for. We pulled this massing out in sort of this grayscale model, and then we started working with the whole building, because this will have to go to the design review board. We want to make sure we're drawing clues from the building, but we're not copying the building to pretend that this is a historical addition. We are trying to say this is an addition that works very well with the massing, the window openings, the heights, the stone detailing, all the things that we can pull out of the building that make sense. And so we think the building, it gives this sort of importance, it gives it sort of a feeling that Hartford entrance is important. It's going to be the new sort of front door of the building operationally, but it will never take away anything from the front and the open lawn that we have. So it really makes sense to me more when you see it in a animation, because you get the sense as if you move down Worthington and turn on Hartford, you get a sense that that really starts to work. It doesn't take away from this, and this is what is one of the most beautiful facades of any school I've ever seen. So are there burning questions right now for Kilbourne? Go ahead.
So I noticed, like, just, it's maybe seem like nitpicking, but like in the windows, you've got those keystones in there, whereas the original building doesn't have it.
Yeah, it's
so I guess I'd point you to go look at Cliff Elementary in Columbus there. My daughter went there for 2 years, and they put on a heck of an addition of that. Yes, you could barely tell it was even new because
Right.
they blended it so well. Will you guys try to match the design better?
And I think we'll get some sort of hints from the design review board. But there's a new school of thought that says you should make an addition look like it's compatible, but does not try to hide it in the historic context of the old one. So you're supposed to change up a little. And I'm not sure yet either whether that's going to be. It's a good observation. Those keystones exist in brick in some places in the building, but they don't exist in stone. So if we flip that to stone, are we going to make it too far from being compatible? It's a great comment, and I'm very anxious to hear what the design review board has to say. We're open. We feel like we want to make sure that this feels like it's the right thing, it fits with this building, but that it isn't just something that happened 100 years ago at the same time the rest of the building happened. And it's great that we picked that out, because that's one of the things that is different and perhaps intentional. Nathan, right? We did it intentionally to try to make a little tiny twist.
Is there still discussion of trying to route the buses behind, like, the Huntington property, and where is that?
Buses or cars, we have Hartford, which is great. It's probably, my preference would be that it'd be cars because that'd be super convenient. But buses are big turning radiuses, and getting them back there is still, there's all kinds of coagulation between the library and Huntington and us. We're still working on that, and we're still trying to figure out what the best is. I think, from a cost standpoint, keeping the back open for cars makes sense because we're not changing turning radiuses and putting in huge new curb cuts and keeping Hartford for buses. It might be the way it works out because of economy, not because of it's our best possible solution.
So is there feedback from those neighboring properties?
Yeah, and the most likely to work with us is the library from our conversations. So we're still continuing that conversation. And they have needs too. They're crowded, and they love the idea that we'll have more space in Hartford Park. When they're not in school session, they've got more parking for the library. It's a tough problem, but one of the things we're trying to solve.
So what's the function of the front door?
The front door is ceremonial at this point, the real front door. And I think there'll be opportunities for kids to go outside. I know that kids use the front yard for certain events. Yeah, it's got to be there for egress. And I don't want to change the fact that that's the formal entry to the school, but I do think it's going to have less traffic now. Just a new side door. Yes, sir.
How much parking are you taking out of the actual lot and adding to parking?
We're not taking any out of the lot yet.
Oh.
We want to keep every space. I didn't want to build the building on one parking space because that's one more parking space that we don't have. We are adding spaces to the park. So we are trying to grow by 20, 30, 40 spaces, again, based on economy, what can we afford? And we're trying to get that because that's kind of where our sweet spot is. We need at least that number of parking spaces. So the park is going to be helpful. Yes, sir.
Oh, I just take it from your comment that the negotiations with the aren't going well.
Yeah, and if I owned the Huntington building, I'm not sure I would have a different position. I mean, to them, their clients, their tenants in that building need parking spaces as bad as we do. For them to give up 10, 20, 30 spaces for us to fix our problem, it's a question. And again, nothing was off the table, but nothing was seeming to land with any kind of support. And again, I don't really blame them if they were a property owner. Okay, oops. Perry Phoenix, a little further along, we're into DDs now, so we're figuring out engineering, we're figuring out how to do the cooling, how to put new skylights and windows to get daylight in the school, how to work with the site. Here we have a much bigger site, so unlike Worthingway and Kilbourne, we have a little more flexibility here, and frankly, it's a simpler problem, because we already have a lot of good things. We have signal intersections, we have wide lanes in and out, we have too narrow of a lane in front of the school, which we're trying to address, and we're going to need more total parking, but there's an obvious place where that seems like it wants to grow. So this is a big school. We're making it for 865 students, 600 Perry Middle School students, and 265 Phoenix students, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. As we've talked before, there's this core of this building that isn't changing much. The big change and the more exciting change of all is the sort of the contained landlocked stuff that was in here really is going to get replaced by the new addition on the front, and this becomes something very special for this school. I told the Perry folks and the Phoenix folks, by sharing a school, there's going to be some obvious things you have to do, compromises you have to make, but the upside is you have a lot more core space because you're in an 865 student school. And so we're not only going to have a full-size gym, we're going to have an auxiliary gym, we're going to have a third music room, we're going to have a second art room, things that the other schools don't get because they haven't reached this threshold. We're also very cognizant and very sensitive to the two academies. They're going to stay self-contained and self-promoted and self-entranced and exited. They will not be an active part of even the simplest parts of the daily operation of the school. We're even providing a new front entrance for Worthington Academy, so they don't even have to borrow the entrance and the traffic and the escorting that they do currently to get folks from the front door of the school as visitors to Worthington Academy. So everybody's going to have their own front door and everybody's going to operate. Phoenix and Perry will operate with some sharedness. They will have a shared front door, a shared side door. There'll be things they'll be able to do separately, but there's a lot of things they're going to share and do together. And again, there's a lot of upside to that, as well as the complexity of it. So there's our existing site. Again, opportunities with sharing of the park, opportunities with access on all sides with open space, and a much bigger school is planned here. You can see how we're growing parking, we're expanding bus drive, and we're creating a new school that even creates another one of these outdoor courtyards that, again, at first we were concerned about, and now we're getting more and more excited about. The entry from the outside will be right up near the sidewalk, and this is going to be a school that has, again, a lot more support. We have the administrative side, the reception, the secure entry, the staff, the principal on this side. We have student services, clinic, guidance, and those kinds of things on the left side. And as you come down this large corridor, we're going to lift the roof for some daylight, and we're going to unwind all the old administration that's in the center of the school, and we are going to create this giant student commons. It isn't just cafeteria, it isn't just sort of soft seating study space, it isn't just the new media center. It's kind of a blurred line between all of that. In the old school, if you're familiar with it, there are 10-foot wide corridors that wrap all around that section of the building. So not only when we take the walls down do we get the space that used to be inside the offices, we get the space that used to define the hallways, and that was hundreds and hundreds of square feet, thousands probably. So this is about a 6,000 square foot student commons, which includes the functions for dining, includes some bleed out for reading and studying from the media center, and includes some sort of formal student commons at the entry to the school, again, which is right here. So this is a very different space and quite impressive in terms of what happens. The old kitchen is in right here, and the old cafeteria was right here. Just those two spaces together, about the size of this room, are going to be the new kitchen in this school. Again, much larger, much more ability to serve both schools, both populations, and also do it in the right kind of space. In the Perry side of things, we drew a lot of our influence from the Worthingway teachers. They were about a month ahead of us. They came up with this idea that classroom teachers will partner, they'll team, they'll have an intervention specialist that will pull kids out of both of their rooms. They will share this room at other times for common work or small group work. And so this idea of 2 classrooms around a small group room was a theme that we established here at Worthingway. And as we talked to teachers who potentially will be at Perry, and definitely talking to the teachers at Phoenix, they thought this was a good Perry Middle School sort of solution. So all of our middle schools are going to kind of build off this solution, again, as we move forward. We had a little different spin on the Phoenix group. They wanted to team in 4 classrooms together. They do a lot of open sharing. They have portable walls. They're a bit old and a bit tired in their school today, but they open them a lot and have actually 2 and 3 classrooms working together in a large space. We're going to formalize those walls a little better, but we're going to put large garage doors in them. So just in a moment's notice, they can close them and have a test, or open them and have some teaming and some concept. This is very much driven by the Phoenix staff and the Phoenix students, which are pretty incredibly successful with where they're headed. So it's a little different kind of classroom, but we have the ability to do that in this school. This school's going to grow in the same sort of architectural idea. The 2-story addition is going to be on the back, out of the way. This is going to feel wider and way more transparent. My biggest criticism of this school as it sits today is it was built during the energy crisis, and windows were a bad thing, and there's very few of them in the whole building. We're going to change that with lots of transparency, lots of daylight. Even the internal areas where there's lots and lots of building around them, we're going to get some natural clear story lighting. So entry drive, again, much wider. All this transparency is going to be new art rooms, new media centers, places where you want north light. The 2-story classroom addition, large windows, lots of natural daylight harvested in those rooms. So we'll have a whole different sense of, again, what classrooms ought to be like in a school from this era. This idea of an outdoor courtyard for outdoor space. And I'm really excited about is this side of the courtyard is Perry, this side of the courtyard is Phoenix. They're going to have opportunities to do things together outside. We're excited about that. New front door, again, importance. We're going to lift it. We're going to have natural light moving back that large hallway as you come into school. It's going to feel much more grand and formal. And let's look at this quick animation. in the core of the existing Phoenix building. And there's mechanical systems up in these areas where there's never been natural light. We take those out and put in modern mechanical systems, and we have all that space to open this up. We're just starting to imagine the furniture. We're not even close yet to getting it where we were going to take it, but just the idea of the amount of space. This is the new media center. This is the old media center, which will become some large group breakout space for the Phoenix students. Yes.
So I've heard some different things that we're going to clarify. Will there be one gym in this arena or two?
We thought we would grow the existing gym and just make it as big as an 800 student gym needed to be, but when we started talking about Phoenix and Perry and scheduling, we decided a smaller auxiliary gym was going to be the better solution. So we have a 6,000 square foot existing gym, and we have a 3,500 square foot auxiliary gym. So there'll literally be 2 gym spaces. The big gym will divide into 2, so there'll be 3 places to have a PE class. So the scheduling for Perry and Phoenix won't be as stressed to try and get those things to happen.
So is that smaller gym, is that more a typical size of like an elementary school?
It's very much like an elementary gym.
So one thing that we struggle with, and some of the other WRD parents really understand, with indoor sports is gym space.
Right.
And to have the opportunity to make a slightly larger second gym might make a really big difference with the scheduling of sports in the winter.
Right. We heard that from all the other principals. Nathan has an 8,000 square foot gym here. He said, how do I get an auxiliary gym?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm
Because
just
it's
thinking
really,
of the
you're right,
space you can add.
flexibility.
We just need more gym
Right.
space.
Well, to kind of couple on the Kate's comment too, being WIB sports myself, leisure space too, for parents coming to attend these events.
Correct.
You've got to have leisure space to be
Or
able to.
a music performance the same night as an athletic performance, or a ROTC practice area, or a wrestling event from one of the high schools could be in a gym that size. So it's really a nice additional space for the district, but especially for the flexibility of these 2 spaces. Yes?
You mentioned earlier the 2 high school options will be self-contained and that they'll have their own entrance, which I think is a positive. At a prior planning meeting, I had expressed concern about interior access because there was some back and forth with Phoenix. And I'm looking at it purely from an active shooter standpoint. What considerations have you taken with respect to interior spaces?
Right.
To
There's
plan for the new environment?
compartmentalization. There are some emergency exits that pass through some of these other spaces, but they are electronically locked. There's no traffic that's even a random student during the middle of the day could go from Worthington Academy into Phoenix. That happens now because there's a lot of traffic that comes from the front door, but we're going to be able to control that and lock that down a lot more. Same goes for these connections between Perry and Phoenix. A lot of places where when someone in the office pushes a button, this building will have a lot of doors that shut and lock. And that is, again, compartmentalized for active shooters.
And I mean, are they factoring in communication systems between all 4 of these
Absolutely.
concepts?
Absolutely. Emergency systems, communication systems all have to be across the whole campus, even outside the building as well.
And one minor clarification, so the Perry and Phoenix Middle School students would be eating lunch at the same time in the same space?
Not necessarily. We got this giant space. It might be that they want to do that from a scheduling standpoint. It might be that, Phoenix starts earlier, they eat a couple periods earlier than the Perry students. Again, as the architect, I would hate to tell you that the only way for this building to work is you have to all eat together. That's not necessarily what we're doing here. We'll leave that up to the district. I do think there's going to be a lot of cross traffic. There may be some kids doing study hall at this end of the building from Phoenix and kids eating lunch from Perry at the other end. That could be happening. That is a big, open, flexible room. But again, I don't want to force anything on anybody. This is a quick look at how the construction scheduling and phasing might happen. We're going to get into it deep for this building, but just this slide today for this building. We're going to build the blue, the new Perry first. And the reason we want to do that is A, it's the hardest and most lengthy thing to do. We're going to have to make some construction connections to mechanical systems through the hallways. We'll probably do that on weekends and on breaks and at night. We're going to leave the red and orange areas that are currently Phoenix and the 2 academies alone in the first phase. We're not going to bother them. We're going to leave them alone. Once we have this done, in some manner of that time, we're also going to put the new space on the front. The thing that this small group of Phoenix students gives us is once we need to get into their space, we're going to have a brand new middle school here that we can move them into for a semester. The only thing it's going to take is about 6-8 months out of this red space in the blue space, and we're going to be able to make all of the red space like new space. And so we have this phasing plan, and we have a small population here, and that gives us the ability to use our new space just temporarily so we can get our old space back and up to new standards. This will be a new building front to back when we're done.
So the new space will be HVAC, electrical, lighting?
Yeah, we have to do those kind of upgrades to the red. We think that'll take 6 to 8 months. So a semester plus a summer, and we've got it done. So. We're going to probably be all the way to Christmas of 2020 building all the new space. And then we're going to take the summer and 1 semester, the spring semester of 21 in the summer, to finish the building with the red space. Move the Phoenix kids back in and then populate the building, I think 1 year at a time, with Perry kids coming up from 9th grade or from 6th grade. So I used about half our time, a little more than half, on the other 3. I want to spend a little more time on Worthingway, get into a little more detail. As you can see, there's a lot more worked out because we've been through a lot of phases with landscape architects and kitchen designers and mechanical designers and electrical designers and lighting, window blinds, you name it. Those kind of details have been swept through. This was always our hardest site. It's always was the coolest site because it's a neighborhood school. It has beautiful context. It has beautiful trees around it. We have this brand new track around it. We always thought we were going to do something that just blew that track out off the site or went one way or the other. In fact, a couple of times you drop your pencil and say, why don't we just tear it all down and start over? Well, we need an active school site to happen all the years that this is going to take. And so where we've got today, I think, is amazing. We've kept the right amount of the building to make this affordable and to make it work in our scheduling and have a place for kids to be. We've changed the site so dramatically in terms of how we're going to handle traffic, cars and buses coming from different directions and having the ability to do that and keep cars and buses on site instead of around the site. We've stayed away from edges. We've stayed away from retention and drainage areas. We've kept as much green surface as possible. We weren't sure about 2 stories at the beginning, but now the 2 stories has made our impervious area added to the school about a wash from what we're tearing down to what we're adding. We're still keeping lots of green space on this site. I think the architectural style of the new and the old is worked out. I think there's a lot of details you'll see by more detailed pictures as we get down to it. But I'm feeling like this is a really complete package. This is a brand new Worthingway school. And you're never going to know, in this case, unlike the historic question, you're never going to know that this wing, this hallway, and the gym and some of the music area is all that's left from the old school. You're going to see so much new and so much improvement in the old that we're feeling very good. This is 20 more classrooms of space. Again, this is going to be one of the larger middle schools, but we feel like we've got it as compact as we can. We've shortened this wing up from our first ideas so that there are no roadways and there's no huge fill quantities at this end of the site. We're going to try to keep this as gradual as possible. It is still steep as you get down to the creek, but it's still pretty natural and it's still close. The fire department worked with us with a lot of detail to figure out how to get more truck access to more areas of the building. The new code says you have to be within 150 feet with the pumper truck to any point in the building. That's the hose length that the pumper trucks carry. So they want to be able to do that. So we have a new fire drive that brings us around the back of the school. It will be mostly pedestrian all the time. When it needs to be a fire lane, emergency lane, that's when it will be. But for the most part, it's going to be kind of a nice outdoor patio to the back of the school. Lots of transparency again. This is another school from the 50s and 60s. We're going to make that different, but we're going to control that carefully. We're going to talk about that some more. We've been playing around with some colors and finishes. Well, obviously, we're building off the brick color that's current in the building. We are looking at some sort of mid-century modern colors. A little bit of Frank Lloyd Wright influence here with this color. And again, we're still playing around with these images, and the beautiful thing about all the work Brian's done in the computer is we can see those images. from paints on the wall to carpet patterns to everything. Even the landscaping you see here is pretty representative of our landscape design, which we have finished as well. View from the back, again, you can see the new volumetric sort of pattern we have here for parking. You can see we've maintained the outdoor courtyard. It's very cool space here that sort of tailors down into the track area. Brand new concession building that was built. We're replacing some of the outdoor play space that we're taking away with the building and actually growing that. At this end of the building, this is the middle of the current classroom wing. So everything you see in the foreground of this picture is the existing entry where the media center and the office is, the current Worthingway. We're going to put a new finished end on this part of the classroom, and we're going to get a much, much better and safer bus drop-off and pickup in and out of the site. So we're very excited about that, and this has turned out pretty great in terms of it working with the design of the whole building. And here we can see the amount of traffic we can support and the double directions that we can support that traffic. You can see how we're getting daylight into the school in places where it currently doesn't exist. And we're getting a lot of new trees, a pretty extensive new landscaping plan, and we've worked with the city of Worthington to get there. New drop-off entry. A little further and further back. This is standing across the street looking at the building. Again, I think the two-story wing, as it gets farther and farther away, starts to fit right behind the one-story wing without being a lot of additional massing. And that was something we were concerned about and were careful to deal with. Again, some existing trees that are there are going to continue there, and some new trees are going to help buffer this from the edges where we're closest to the street. Inside, beautiful views for one thing, great daylight. We are going to have mechanical blinds in all these windows to control light from the inside and from the outside. We'll talk about that a little more toward the end. This is where it gets exciting. You come into the cafeteria now, you come into this courtyard, it's pretty dark. We had this little glass sort of connector between the two sides of the building. This is the back side of that existing connector. When you come into the front door of the new Worthingway Middle School, you're going to see the track, because this is a very open, very daylit sort of student commons again. One thing it wants to be is a cafeteria, but it's also going to be everything else for the core sort of center nucleus of this building. And again, popping up the roof and getting some natural light in here is pretty exciting. Classrooms, again, imagine the difference between the daylight before and after. The new technology we're going to be including. Again, we're playing around with some ideas with furniture. We're doing some test furniture with the district. They've bought classrooms with the furniture that they're going to test and try and sort of come up with the ones they think works the best. We'll be buying furniture more than a year from now, so we have the time to do that. Again, this is, to me, the best part of the building, is how it masses and takes all that new square footage and makes it as tight and as snug and as compatible with the existing building as possible. And this is a pretty amazing video, given the detail, both inside and out. Cars moving and the track stars running on the track and the flags flying is all Brian just showing off. let that finish. But people ask us what's the biggest change from old to new, and I think it's these collaboration spaces. The teachers are the most excited about it, but even the students we talk to were excited about it. When you've got spaces like this that you can break out and work, I think there's better ways to learn, from blended learning, from online learning, but from collaborative learning, I think that's the most exciting. And so these kinds of spaces with that natural light and that kind of activity going on, I think is what's going to be most different about the middle schools today, or when we're finished, than they are today. So this school is probably the most complicated phasing plan, but it's very similar strategy. Okay, I'll answer some questions before I get into that. Go ahead.
Can you explain the flow to me? Because it's kind of right at the corner. So you have one drive. Right now it's a flow through drive. So in the future, it kind of looks like there's two, but is there still a pass through?
Let me get to the phasing, and I'll be able to show you that on the site plan.
I mean, I meant like the driveways.
Yeah, that's what I mean on the site plan. Yeah.
You will show the site plan?
Yes, I will. Yeah. So this is just the building plan. The blue is the new construction. It's the wraparound of the orange, which is the old core wing. So we're going to build that wraparound first, and we'll talk about how it's fenced and how we exit it. We're going to leave the gym and music room and cafeteria in full service. We won't touch them. We'll be working around the outside of the building, but not getting inside the building. We're leaving the entire classroom wing totally operational in this whole first phase. As we get close to that middle summer, we're going to start working on the kitchen and the cafeteria because it's going to change. We're going to raise the level of the floor in here to this level, and we're going to expand the size of this out there about 4 times into that blue area. So we're going to take one semester and work in this kitchen and cafeteria, and we're going to temporarily satellite lunch during that one semester. Once this is all done, we're going to move Worthingway Middle School into this left side of the building. Then we'll address the right side, it's phase 4. We're going to tear down the right side, and we're going to totally renovate the science, science and math classrooms that are in that wing. This will help understand. Here's the current site plan of the school. You can see we've got kind of a one-way bus drive that has to go out to Larimer, or it can come down a little bit lower. Our only on-site parking is really this little elbow shape here. After school events, we can put some parking out there in the street. We've got a little bit of staff parking here. So, as we get through this, this is what's going to happen first. That's the building part we're trying to work on first. So our construction manager, Priscilla, they're going to build a fence around that part of the school. Again, the access to the school through the typical doors and the access out to the track and the courtyard will be pretty open. We'll have a fence that controls this area. For emergency exits, we'll have a couple emergency exits that go through the fence. But we are going to sort of clamp around the outside of the core wing, but we are not going to touch the inside of the building in this first phase, October through next May. So the first school year that we're in already, we're going to start some of this in the next month. We're going to have this fence in blue. We're going to have some construction traffic coming from the street in. They will phase and park and do all the things they need to do inside the fence. And Peg, if I'm saying something wrong, jump in there and correct me. And then that next summer, June to December, we're going to pull the dining room and kitchen into our project. We're going to keep the gym and music alone, but we're going to pull dining and kitchen into our new project and get it up to speed and caught up with the brand new cafeteria and dining space that will be out here in the blue. So from June to December, the fall semester of next year, we're going to have to satellite where we eat and who makes our food. But we're going to figure out how to do that.
What is satellite?
Satellite means maybe the food is made at Worthington Estates and it's brought down here and served to the kids, because our kitchen will be offline for about 4 months.
Where will they eat it? I mean, will there
Maybe
be...
the gym. Nathan, have we thought about that?
Okay.
I mean, it is the most conflicted and most compromised part of this project, is that kitchen is not where it needs to be, and this dining room is not where it's going to be when it's all said and done. So that red area is the biggest collaboration issue that we have to deal with. So over the 2 summers, next summer and the following last summer, we'll come in and do tactical improvements on all the gym spaces, the locker rooms, the music rooms. They'll all get renovated, but they're going to happen only during summer. So we will just come in quickly and do the things we need to do to make those spaces be renovated. We'll never have them offline from the standpoint of operable school. And then in July of 20, that's when we can move over here and we can start working on this wing. I'm sorry, I'm missing the summer. In the summer, we're going to fix this entire roadway up here. This is only going to be during the summer, but we're going to take the entire top of the site, join it in with our construction project here, which is finishing up, and we will be doing all that new driveway work that's in front. And that is just in the summer of 20, from June to August. Then, when we start school again, we're going to, be finishing this up and getting down to the last bit. We're going to go through December 20, and we're going to have an entirely new school on the left side of the site. Everyone that goes to Worthingway School will then be going to school on the orange side. But we take the last semester of January to July of 21, and we tear down this wing and we completely renovate science and math. And so there'll be a little bit of during that fall or that spring semester, there'll be a little fence around that end so we can do a demolition project here and not cause any implications to traffic. The very last summer is the most important one. That's when we do the grand improvement over here. Now that this part of the school is gone, we can do our final bus drive, we can do our final fire drive, we can make all this happen over the summer. And when school opens, we're completely, in the fall of 21, we're complete.
Can you flip back to that last slide real quick?
This one?
And then one before. Okay.
This is complicated and it's important, so I know you're all kind of scrambling to sort of discern what you're seeing. So we're trying to make sure we take some time with this, yes?
So my big thing is kids who bike, because I have kids who bike, and so when you close down that side of the school and the other side of the school, you've got to be sure, because kids will still bike in
Right.
from that entrance on the right.
Right.
The one over there.
There'll
So
still be a
how-
way to get bikes around and into new bike racks in front of the school here before we close this off. This is still going to be the front door of the school for the first half of the construction
So
project.
safely, even though that fence is up, there's still a way to get.
This
in.
fence is only up at the very last 3 months of the project.
Right, I understand, but
Yeah.
those are months that kids.
Right, but this whole side is operational. This whole driveway, all the new bike racks, all the new service drives.
But you're
They're all
saying that
done.
a child could bike in right on the right side of this field and somehow get
And-
without riding in the street.
And Peggy is listening to you, but yes, we need a sidewalk or some way to identify a bike route that gets to the front of the school from this drive. You're absolutely right.
Okay.
So they're taking notes and hearing what you're saying. Yes, sir.
The depiction going forward, that doesn't seem to match up with what was being shown on the prior about green space down in the lower right-hand corner. I mean, in what you were showing before. the
Well,
depiction of
I
the
was talking about the green space that we thought we'd be sitting on top of here by having to double up the footprint of this classroom wing. This is going to remain green space. We
Sure.
talked about driveways and other things coming this way, but when we got done with the fire department, we figured this was the best. We shortened this to keep it as far away from this slope and this creek as possible.
I'm talking about Dyer's.
Talking about
Lower right
Yeah,
hand corner.
here. So this is exactly the same footprint that's there now, and then it'll start to peel off to create this new bus drive. So, yeah, let me, there.
That really wasn't the way
So
it looked
this,
like.
this triangle is going away in favor of new bus parking. And that is not ideal from the loss of green space, but it is ideal from the safety and handling of buses.
How many more parking spaces are going to be on this site?
I'm guessing we're going from about 40 to 80, so we're about doubling the parking.
With the majority of them being up at the other side of the school then?
Yes, almost all of it to the north. This will be parking for after-school events, lots of it, but during the day it is for buses and
So
bus
the section
transportation.
down here that,
Those parking spaces can still be there, and I assume that staff will probably use them.
well, you know, like right now, people park on the grass right there. and
Yeah.
So
I think-
is that going to be parking space?
Well,
Or is that
no, just the ones that are parallel or perpendicular to the drive lane. I know that people end up down here when they can't find anything. Hopefully there's more that keeps them from doing that. Other things we can talk about is curbs and low fences to keep that from happening.
Okay, so what's the rationale of putting them across from the existing parking spaces rather than the green grass where people already park, taking up those neighbors' yard? Because that's like 5
What we're
feet
saying
from the
is
house.
this footprint down here is already there. We're not changing that. We're filling in this triangle with the bus space. And so yes, there are still going to be a handful of perpendicular parking spaces here, and ideally it's going to be for
But it
teachers.
looks like you added more on the other side.
Yeah, and again, that's the engineers looking for every little
Right,
bit.
but what's the rationale of putting them there rather than the green
Because there's
space
space
that
there,
follows-
and there's a
Right,
driveway
there's
there that
space on
exists.
the green space also.
What green space?
It's a place where people already park, right?
Oh, you mean here?
Section lower right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lower
yeah.
right-hand corner.
Well, and that's worth listening to. I mean, that's a good point. If it makes sense to keep them all facing south and keep that off. I guess it depends on the opinions of the two neighbors and the engineers in terms of where water goes and where stormwater is, but I think that's a great point. Yes, sir.
Is this tennis courts at the northwest corner of the track?
Basketball courts.
Basketball court. So with the additional hard space, hard surfaces there, combined with the building, what's being done to remediate the drainage issues that they're going to have all along the western
Excellent question.
property edge?
Our collection of stormwater will be faster than it was what it is today because we'll have more impervious surface. So we've got big underground drainage structures that are going to detain water. Impervious pavers in this parking up here, they're going to absorb that water and get it into underground storage. And again, that underground storage will have small outlets that lets it flow down to the creeks. But our job and our requirement by code is to make sure there's not an increase in runoff from the site. We have to hold it and detain it as long as we can and let it out slowly.
And what's the space, the reduced space, what is it from the western edge of the new construction to the property line?
Probably 110, 115 feet. Great questions.
On the Geyer Street side,
Uh-huh.
so I believe there was sort of a triangle of green space that's going to be closer to the track.
Yes, this triangle is going away. The sidewalk that goes down across the track, that's going to be our new edge of pavement. So we'll still have this space here, but the triangle that's inside it is now becoming the edge of the bus parking lot. So there's still green space between the track and the drive, but it's less.
I think what you guys are ultimately trying to do is get traffic off the neighborhood streets and ultimately get it on site here for parking.
Yeah, and more importantly, it's having kids get out of buses and cars safely. And right now, it's as best as they can do, but it's not as safe as this. Yes.
So will cars enter and exit during the school day off of Reaver and the buses off of Geyer? Or will they be crossing each other?
This road could be two ways. I don't know what the district's decision is going to be on traffic. Buses will probably always come in Larimer and park along this edge and always exit on Geyer and go probably out Larimer and south. Cars could all come in and all go out this way. Cars could come in this way and go out this way. Cars could come in this way and go back out this way. Cars could go in this way and go out this way. So I'm not telling Nathan how to control traffic or the city of Worthington that may have some influence on this. But we're trying to make it flexible so that we can do that.
I just want to echo the comments on the parking spots along,
Up here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really, they already park in the grass along there, so I think it's an easy fix to push it that way, and especially with the flow, when most of the time cars are coming into Larimer or coming this way, it just makes more sense, live it,
Right.
practically.
I hear you.
So I guess I thought the landscaping plan was still being developed, as you said, final.
Well, I haven't shown it to you yet. It's there. So this is existing and new trees, and there's a lot of new trees, especially the perimeter of the building, the perimeter of the new parking areas. We're filling in more trees, and we're putting a lot more buffers around the building. And in fact, our landscape designer is here tonight, so I'll let him you can get up here and talk if you guys are interested.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to see in terms of what's going to be retained of the mature shade trees that are there currently.
There is a matching pair of huge trees here that the fire lane is taking out, and there are 3 large trees in the track that are beautiful that this lane is taking out. Those are the major impact trees. There's some smaller pines and locust trees that are coming out because of additional footprint, but we're putting way more back than we're taking out. But we cannot put in the 3 big trees in terms of their age and their size.
The ones like along the east side there, and then around the boulder on the upper right-hand side, are those all?
These are all, there's a couple existing ones here that'll stay because we're not changing this footprint, but there's a lot more new ones that'll go in here and fill in.
So I need to preface a few things here. We're still in design. We're still working on budgets. There are some things that we're showing that may not actually happen yet. We're still in the design process. So we're here to update everybody. We're hoping we can get all that green you see, but we still have a lot of conversations to finish the construction documents. We have a budget to work within, and we're still evolving this. So everything you see today, it's getting closer here to being done, but it is not 100%. We're still working on it, so I just want to make sure that everybody's aware.
And if you have ideas about landscaping deficiencies that exist today that we can fix, by all means, Cheryl, yes.
So I previously brought up some issues about lighting and the scale of this addition, and particularly, there's a lot more glass.
Right.
And how that is going to be handled in the
Right.
evening especially, because, this sits in the middle, a lot of people.
It's a neighborhood
very
school.
close to it,
Face,
and
yeah.
I don't want to see CVS across the street.
Right, I understand. So one of the things that's required by Worthington is that we use full cutoff light fixtures outside. That means you see a light fixture like this, you see the ground lit, but you don't see bulbs, you don't see halos, you don't see fixtures, you see just the light. That's a requirement. So our parking lots and our bus lot will have these kind of lights. Our building, especially the side that faces the east, closest to the neighbors, where those large media center room walls are, will have the mechanical shades. These shades can go down and up for sun coming in the building. They can go down and up for light going out of the building. They're programmable based on illumination. They're programmable based on time schedule. They're programmable based on occupancy. Like when the people leave the media center, the shades go down. Those things can all happen. So we plan to have all those windows in that stair step with this kind of pattern. So that this, besides the trees, and besides the occupancies that will turn the lights off, we will be able to put shades up and down, especially if there's some kind of event at the school at night.
What about the two-story addition?
Same thing. There's internal blinds in those windows. They can be closed. Again, all of the building rooms in this building are occupancy censored. When I walk out of this cafeteria, if I'm the last person, these lights go off. They automatically go off. They're not something I have to remember to turn the switch. So we're very sensitive to foot candles at the edge of the property. And this is, as you have observed, where the most glass occurs. So we have to be very careful with that. And we plan to do it by shading. We plan to do it by the kind of fixtures we use outside. And we plan to do it by the kind of fixtures we use inside. So we get it, and it's a fair comment, and it's something we're very sensitive to.
So I'm not sure if you can speak to this or not, but I live right adjacent to where the demolition is going to happen. Is there any concerns we should have in terms of debris, in terms of lead paint, asbestos, anything like that?
We will have to abate any of the materials that are hazardous before we start demolition, so that will happen. And then when they do demolition, they tend to sprinkler it. They tend to spray water on it while they do it, so that the brick dust and things like that don't become a neighborhood cloud. But we have to be very careful and very sensitive, and we probably will have, lunchbox talks where we talk about what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and what we're going to do about, containment. Because you're right, we are absolutely next door neighbors to a lot of people, including a lot of students going to school. So we have them to be concerned with as well. That's an excellent point, yes.
So a couple things. Number one, in terms of keeping disruption out of the neighborhood with materials, I know building a school, that two-story addition here with a lot of things coming through here. Has there been thought to deliver schedules so we're not coming in at 8 o'clock in the morning? We've got elementary kids go to school, get a lot of walkers in the neighborhood.
Right.
For that time.
Timing is really important. We have an advantage where most construction crews quit at 3. We might want to say, after school's out, that's a good time to be on site. So maybe we're going to shift our construction schedule from, really early to 3 to maybe mid-morning to later. I don't know. That's a decision the construction manager has to work through with the trades, but that's a good point, and that's an important thing. This is a little different kind of site than an empty site where, construction workers like to get on site at dawn and they like to be home by 3:30.
Also, construction workers on site along with, we have youth.
Yes.
Have we put provisions into background check these guys so we don't have predators on site?
Right.
For these kids?
100% background checks for every person that works in the job, even me. If I want to come on a construction site with a hard hat, I got to go down to Bethel Road to the fingerprint place and I got to get a background check. So that'll happen. Everyone will have a hard hat with an identification badge on it. And if they ever are going to get outside the construction zone and get into the school just to go switch a breaker in a panel, they will have to sign in and they'll have to be on the same kind of security badge that we all do when we come visit the school. So it won't be any different. There won't be casual construction workers walking up and down the hallways during the day. That can't happen. They'll have to have a reason, they'll have to have a visitor's pass. Otherwise, they're going to be inside the construction zone, which they will all have been background checked before they ever show up on site. Yes. Talk louder.
Construction time, rework is the background.
Uh-huh.
Where is the trucks going to be? This road is awful and we have to put it on. And these awful doesn't finish the school in the afternoon. So I'm wondering, you shut the sidewalk down
Right.
neighbors in front of the street?
Those are excellent questions. This is a tough neighborhood to get concrete trucks in, but we have to do that. I don't know how we do it or how we schedule it and what the pathway is, but the city of Worthington is already weighing in on that in terms of bringing us in, Larimer, and then running around our drive where we open a gate temporarily for 5 minutes and then close it. I don't know, and I haven't figured it out personally. But I absolutely agree with you. Just getting to this site is going to have its own unintended consequences.
Well, are they also going to be still doing school activities while the parking is in the track? Because like we did this week with all the parking around the river factory, like maybe get a car down the road.
Right, so again, that fence will be up, and that fence will be non-penetrable for activities after school. Yeah, we want the track to be open, we want the courtyard to be open, we want the new parking lot to be open as soon as possible, but there is going to be areas of the site that are going to be, unavailable during this construction.
But I mean, Thackeray agrees with the street.
Yeah, right, and again, I don't know, there's a construction gate on Thackeray, that makes sense maybe for some construction traffic. I'm thinking maybe the workers. I don't know where, and I don't know, Peg, if you have talked about with the city where that's going to come from.
Yeah, this is Reaver is the one that's been hooked up to the top of it. Our intention is to bring most of our construction traffic in that way to get it off, to get it back to the back.
What can you do with like this works?
So-
Well, we've been working with the administration here, and our understanding is that they want to be able to keep all the athletics access from the middle school to that. So, parking, I don't think we really worked through your parking, I think we actually support that. We're trying to manage, trying to create a site that really is.
And Peg, I think what she's saying is the street will be full of cars because there's some going on at the school, which will make it even harder for us to use the street for any kind of construction traffic.
Right. And so, I mean, what we'll do, we work, this is not the first week that we go. So, we work real closely with your administration here, and we do manage that, we understand the schedule of activities, this, we plan our weeks around, we don't accept it. Just like Jeff said, too, a lot of what we do is tailor our construction day, or your drop off and pick up times. So we'll either do instead of starting later and ending later, that actually is more difficult at the end of the day because there's so much activity after school. Most of the time, we like to start earlier, and there's a quiet time that we won't let anybody kind of go from the site when it's time for drop off. So we just won't allow any construction.
There's going to have to be a master schedule of how things happen, and even special days when nothing can happen because it's a testing day or something. So we're going to have to work through that. This is going to be an occupied site. There are going to be the days I call what were we thinking days, and they're going to happen. But there also is an end game that's this brand new school.
Do you anticipate any working evenings overnight?
I think we might have some mechanical connections where somebody's running an electric conduit above the ceiling from one side of the school to the other, but it would be a handful of people, and they would have passes and credentials that would allow them in the building, and they would be using the security system in the building to be here.
What about noise for the neighbors?
What?
Or like jackhammering or.
Oh gosh, no, that's not even legal in the city of Worthington. There's a curfew decimal hour.
Well, last night.
Yeah, I know. The leaf blowers seem to go all night. Yeah, I know. But no, there's no way.
What are we going to be seeing in terms of construction fits when we look out our back windows?
Peg, what, a 6-foot high
There's
chain link?
high and we put scrim on them to.
Scrim, like a tennis court scrim?
Basically keep, debris and stuff in, and then also to keep various things. It's an opportunity for the advertisements for the school to solicit
No propaganda.
You have, like that. A lot of times we
Yeah, I did in the city of Florida State, did really severe equipment elementary, so all those people just
Yeah.
mosey on that site.
That's an expensive proposition for contractors to lose their tools and all that stuff, so they're going to have to, deal with that early. In terms of security.
Yeah.
We'll probably use motion sensors in the open areas and stuff like that at night. Question back here, yeah.
Just a question of clarification. You said something about with all the new hard surface that's going to be at the site because of the new construction. You said that there's going to be more permeable. You're going to make permeable surfaces
Yes.
so that water can drain into underground storage.
Correct.
Could you kind of maybe point out
Sure.
where the permeable surfaces are going to be?
So-
Or do we know that yet?
Yeah, the word impervious area is the enemy of stormwater.
Right.
If stormwater, if rain lands on asphalt, it runs fast and furious. If it lands in grass, it slows down, it soaks in.
Yeah,
The
that's
whole-
a seventh grade science standard that I teach.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm kind of selfishly asking for great pictures that I can
Yeah,
use.
so
to
that
teach,
that crosshatch area where all the cars park, that's going to be permeable pavers, which means the water's going to run down between the cracks and go into big, giant detention structures under the parking lot.
So all of that.
That center section, the bus drive and the traffic for trucks and garbage cans doesn't work on pervious, so we have to have that be solid. But that whole center section is going to be a giant storm drain, and it's going to have a giant storm storage device under it, and then there'll be an 8 or 10 inch orifice on that allows the water to go out slowly. So if you don't have mud and salt down in this creek at 30 seconds after a rainstorm, it all
Which
gets
creek are
collected.
you referring to?
Just the low swale that's around the south.
We could maybe call it a swale, I wouldn't call it a creek.
There is
Okay.
no creek there.
Okay, swale.
It's a back
Does it pick up stormwater when it storms, rains hard?
It tries.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't feel well.
So you may recall last time we talked about massing and the approach when you're coming southbound and how the addition lays with the trees, and thanks for hearing me there. And we had some offline conversations about what the slope does there on the west side there. So how's the elevation change from the addition? We're picking up, 200 feet of construction? How's that elevation change from the old addition to the structure down to your creek?
We have some dropping elevation inside the hallways, so that this is as close to existing grade as possible. We probably have 2.5, 3 feet of fill at the end of that building that we pick up, but then we feather it out quickly so that this is all kind of the slope that's there today. That space, that 120 feet between the swale and the edge of the building.
How many feet did that move back in our?
8 to
We were
11.
8 feet out a while ago. We moved back about 8
But
feet.
the bigger change is we were talking about pretty steep retaining walls for driveways and stuff, and we got rid of that.
So you're saying that the construction comes out to the west, but that's no more steep than it is today?
This door is about 3 feet off the ground of where you see the ground today. So there's going to be a little bit of a steeper feather there than today, but it's going to be very quickly back to the way it looks just the way it is today.
Will you be excavating along that swale to increase the drainage, the diameter of the drainage?
No, I don't know that we even have access to that totally on our property. We're going to be trying to store the water underground and then still take it to the same retention and out that it goes today.
Where underground? Where?
Under all the parking lots, there's going to be some storage, and then there's going to be some detention ability at the south corner.
Which we already have.
Yeah, but
So-
that's got to serve, a slower outflow than, there's going to be more containment upstream of that detention basin.
We should talk to your engineers before
Yes.
they finalize that
Yes.
stormwater containment plan?
Yeah. I mean, it's a big deal. That's the biggest challenge with the civil here, is stormwater. Okay, lots of hands, yes, sir. Yes. It can be two-way. I think we're maybe talking about maybe adding a couple feet to it. We want to make it narrow so that people slow way down and they negotiate it. If the district decides the only way they want it to be is one way, that's up to them. But I'm saying that we could allow cars to spin and come in and out Larimer if we wanted to. That's up to the district. Yes, sir.
Second part is, what station, teachers, there's gonna be a home section, visitor section?
Are we adding bleachers?
No.
No, they're tip and roll bleachers that the district would put there. Yes.
I think everything was great, and I think our students are gonna be really lucky to have all these brand new buildings.
We hope. Yeah, but it is going to be a process. Everyone in this room has to bear over the next 18 months.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just want to make a few comments. I think overall the design is great. It looks wonderful. I think you had two options on your storefront and cornice color. I think the red is more striking and it looks nicer. Personally, though, I think the entry canopy is a little sad looking. It seems a little under scale, a little kind of like it's just thrown on there personally. So I think maybe that could use a little more attention.
I think it works really well from the inside scale, but yes, it's a big, giant
Or
building
I
from
guess
the
your
outside.
canopy piece.
Oh,
out the
well,
other
right,
side.
but we gotta obviously keep it a little bit modest so the buses don't clip it and trucks don't clip it.
And the other thing I noticed in your flyover was you had a rooftop unit to the gym.
It's
If you look
there.
at the visibility of
It's
that
there already,
screen,
so if you can't see it now, you won't see it. We're
well, you're
taking.
cutting the addition way back. So I'm wondering if
Right,
that changes
but these two
the
units are
visibility
there.
of
There's
that.
giant mammoth units on this roof today that you can see as you come down Larimer, I know.
Yeah.
Those will be gone. We're getting rid of all those. But the two that tuck on either side of the gym, those are existing units which we're not replacing. We're adding air conditioning to them, but we're leaving them in place. So walk around the building today and see them. You can't. When you're back here, you definitely can see them. But I don't think you'll ever see them from the front or from the west side.
So you're adding air to the gym?
Air conditioning to the gym.
Awesome.
Nathan said if you do that, I'll be quiet about everything else.
That's whatever you're gonna start.
Yes.
I'm just curious, the connector between the two parking lots, like, I understand its function now because the buses have to come through that way. But now that the buses can turn around the other lot, why is that connector needed? Because we deal with a lot of through traffic coming through there, people speeding through there, often going the wrong way when it's a one-way currently. And I'm just curious what the function of having
Well,
that connector.
I think Larimer is still the most public, the most high volume street that can get to this site. And I wouldn't want to send everybody up winding around Worthington Estates just to get to the parking lot if I didn't have to. So I still think there's got to be some amount of flow that's allowed not to have to circle up north and come back.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if the school would consider speed bumps there.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's dangerous at times.
Can you show us where the tornado sign is? Is it?
Right there.
No.
I can show you actually the model.
Yeah.
Right
What
there.
did you ask? Tornado.
So we're about 20 feet past the tornado sign.
And that's staying where it is now.
That's where it is now, physically. And see that first tier, that first flat spot, that's right here, and then it starts to go down. We're going to have to extend that flat spot out about another 10, 11 feet. And then go back down.
What about your,
Can you go back to the other one?
Which one?
Back to the slide where you can see the aerial. That tornado siren is not.
It's right there, yeah.
That's where it is. So the basketball courts are up against the tornado siren.
They're sitting in that dark grass area right there.
are they going to be in impervious?
They could be. We haven't decided that. I'm not sure how basketball behaves on
Well,
impervious.
and also the fire trucks have to use.
But it would be very rare, but there is some potential truck traffic on that surface.
Is there a fence? Is there something else there? No other site?
We haven't talked about fencing for either side yet, whether there's some containment that needs to happen, maybe a low fence.
Because the concern is, well, there's no water issues now. What are they doing in terms of bonding money to remedy problems when their water issues turn
Well,
up after?
the city engineers and our civil engineers are working to see that there's no increase in runoff. So if there's no problem now, that's good news for us because we can't make it worse. But if there's a problem now, then we've got two sides to the battle. But again, I think it's all going to be all the additional underground detention that's going to help keep it at no harm, no foul.
With the addition, with all of the new windows, not the windows on this school, I mean, there are,
Right.
are those going to be able to be open? Or
Yes,
they-
operable windows
Okay.
are a key and compliant with the manual design.
And I've heard at other meetings that there will be lockers in that whole wing.
Yes, there'll be lockers in the new wing as well as the old one.
With all of those gorgeous windows, exposing everybody that's in there? Are there security issues so that you don't have to worry about an active shooter getting inside? They can take care of everything from outside.
Right. The windows all have internal blinds, and they, with a quarter turn, they shut. So in an active shooter situation, every teacher knows, and a lot of students know, you turn the blinds so that there's no visibility. Now, the classroom windows aren't ballistic glass. The entrance around the office and where people come in, that's ballistic glass. That's going to be hardened to some degree. But yes, if somebody takes a rifle and shoots in a classroom, they're going to penetrate the glass. But they aren't going to see what's in there because they're going to have to be able to turn the blinds and make the building. A lockdown situation means all the blinds go dark. And 3 planes of glass, but still I'm talking high-powered rifles getting good through.
We are, the district has some security film they've got on some entrances. We're gonna have all of our glass entrances with that security film. We have yet to decide on some of those lower glass areas. We may put security film on them as well. We just haven't gotten there.
Good stuff. Yes.
So the, you had some great size windows with the new addition. Are you gonna have the same, are you gonna increase the size of windows with the existing? Because I know the windows here are kind of narrow.
We really wanted to, but we got into cost issues. So I don't know if it's still an alternate, but no, we'll still have these size windows in the classrooms, the math classrooms that are over here. The science labs will have skylights, but we're still kind of looking at the same glazing in the, I guess, 4 classrooms to the north and 4 classrooms to the south. So they'll have daylight. It's not a lot, you're right. It's smaller windows. Yes.
I also noticed that on the
And-
on the west end of the building there, that could be a new addition. Since we're going to be losing those solar panels, are we going to get to keep those and put those?
That's a good question.
Water drainage and solar power, can you tell that two science?
Right. Our building is required to be what we call solar ready, which means our electronics in the building have to be ready for solar panels, and our roof structure has to be sufficient for solar panels. So that's happening. Those 4 solar panels that are out there are probably degraded in performance to some small amount. But I would like to see in the future, some large array that would allow you to produce a certain amount of power here. That would be great. And we have to make that what we call solar ready.
So we don't get to keep those?
We don't. I don't know that we can't just pick them up and put them in the ground somewhere. I'm certainly happy for you to take the lead on that.
See how I did that?
Okay.
I'll make the same comment I make by any vote of this or go for it. I feel like it's a massive business opportunity for a rooftop patio.
Voters are the top.
Yeah, so with the, I mean, I think, I just want to echo some other way around there. I think the design overall, I have seen there's lots of concern. It's the community are concerned about those, but like, I think you guys have done a great job, and I think that it will
I appreciate that. And I'll take that compliment to make us stop here. Do you have any comments? Okay.
So guys, I just want to say thank you for coming out more than anything else. If you've made comments tonight or you've asked questions, we have taken note of those. But if you have further feedback you want to give, you can send them directly to me. My email is tbowers@wscloud.org. Anything you send to me is going to go directly to Mike and Tony. Okay, so if you go home and you think about things, or you're sharing this with a neighbor and you get a comment of something that we need to attend to, please send that to us. Now with Worthingway, we kind of need that feedback pretty quick, because we're at a place where we're moving. With Perry Phoenix, we're getting closer. We're going to do a repeat of this meeting with more of a focus on the Perry Phoenix part on October 15th. So that's coming up. And then we have a little more time on the McCord KMS feedback. But if you're talking with people, if you're going through the presentation that will be on the website, again, if you want to send feedback directly to me, feel free to do that. Okay? Mike and Tony will be down here for a little while. If you have more specific questions or something you want to talk through, we'll wait around a little bit. All right? Have a great night, guys. Yeah, T. Trent, so T. Bowers, BOWERS, @WSCloud.org.
I was just curious, folks, too, like facilities.